So, yeah, the Life on Life's Terms podcast, and I'm Tom Robinson, grateful recovering addict. Like I always say, we're not affiliated with any 12-step program, although we do endorse them. We do have benefited from them.
But they are not responsible for what we say here.
What we say, that's right.
These are our opinions and our experience.
Yeah, this is a separate thing.
Yes, we are the Life on Life's Terms podcast. We're just a couple of knuckleheads in recovery trying to bring
experience, strength, and hope.
Experience, strength, and hope to people at all times.
Information, recovery at your fingertips.
Okay, my name is Chris Mandeville. I am a recovering heroin addict, and an alcoholic, and a crackhead, and anything else that you could get addicted to.
A more addict.
Yeah, from heroin to Haagen-Dazs, it doesn't matter. So we are here at A New Way Recovery Center on Quincy Ave in Quincy, Mass.
Massachusetts.
Lots of
States of America.
Resources here, lots of meetings here. I think they have like 3+ meetings a day here, just about every day. What's up, Ryan Carey? Yeah, we got to get you scheduled on here too. So you can find us at lolterms.com. You can
Please subscribe.
You can subscribe from there to whatever platform you use, whether it's iOS, Android, and all you have to do is, download a podcast app, a player, and you'll be good. So tonight we have Reggie. I met Reggie actually last week at a meeting. Just happened to, I had the day off. It was his first time there. He just showed up, and I heard him share, and I was like, definitely, because we haven't had we've had people that are in the service, but not a veteran that works with other veterans in recovery, which is awesome. And I was like, yeah. Definitely.
Very cool.
Chased him down after the meeting, was like, hey, exchanged numbers, and here we are now. So we're going to let him share his story with us and let you know how he got where he's at.
Let it rip.
I'm a grateful recovering addict and alcoholic named Reggie. I always like to thank the God of my understanding for selecting me and choosing me to be on this path.
Yeah.
I also want to thank this program. I'm really overwhelmed at the spirit in this room tonight, and with the progress that we've made, not only here but all over the world. And that's a testament to recovery. But in starting, I had to learn about what recovery meant to me before I started my journey. And what it meant to me is it meant that I had lost something and that I have to get it back.
Yeah.
By the time I arrived here, shortly with what I arrived with, it was like sliding in to first base, and I was safe. And my recovery started when I came to the rooms, and I wasn't really looking for someone to show me where a meeting was, because what if those people never showed up there? When the pain became greater than the addiction, I was able to find a solution, and through another higher power, another human being, because in the past, historically, it's been solutional for me to reach up and pull down a crack pipe or a drink or whatever to...
That was your solution to what was going on.
It's a coping mechanism, right? Yeah. Means to living, getting by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man.
And I know how to fix an inside problem with an outside solution, and that's what I did, and that's the way that I live my life. But I also came to the realization that as an addict, anything that looks good, tastes good, feels good, and smells good, I have the capability of turning it into something bad.
Right.
So even as my recovery progressed, it cascaded. There were new things. There was food. There was sex. There were all many different variables that were on the way, but coming in the process, there was sponsorship. And let me explain that, because a lot of people are confused with that. And what is a sponsorship? With all those acronyms and all those letters, spiritual person offering necessary advice on recovery. So by the time I found sponsorship, I was ready to learn. I wasn't fully receptive, but it was a part of my surrender, because I was the type of person where the literature talks about me and says that I'm a master of the scepter. And what that means for me is that I'll be so consumed at how you look at me in your eyes that I won't get honest and tell you the truth about what's going on the inside.
Yeah. Yep.
So they
Wait a
said,
minute, a sponsor. I thought that's like what we need, like an ad. You know?
Yeah. Right? Yeah, if anyone's looking to, get their business out there, you can talk to us as well.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, the thing is, the literature in many books about recovery, it talks about how I'm rebellious by nature. Because I'm a rebellious person. Like, I didn't really want to follow instructions. I came in thinking that I knew everything.
Oh, yeah. Lots of us do that.
Yep. I
And
did that. I was a.
And when I came here, I had to learn a whole new language, because my language was, is there anybody looking? Do you know who has it?
Yeah.
Are they around? So I had to say things that can invoke speech and impact thought. But I had to learn that from other people, because I was so fractured when I came here. I had no morals, values, goals, or convictions. But by the time I arrived in an AA meeting, I still was fractured, because I came in and I was halfway house shopping, chasing some poor woman with 15 days clean, maybe. Bringing
Trying to fix feelings.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Substituting.
One thing for the other.
Yep.
And I had to learn how to hold still, because I was the last one in and the first one out in a meeting. And it took a long time. I had to listen. I had to be open. And before I could be open, I had to graft some stuff onto a closed mind. And I learned that this is a fear-based disease that's rooted in fear. And, that acronym for FEAR, forget everything and run. Fear.
False evidence appearing real as well.
Yes. And I also learned that this is a feeling disease, that everything is about my feelings and the way that I interpret facts to support my own conclusions. And
Well, I think that we're especially sensitive to feelings. We can't handle them very well as addicts. That's why we, especially whether that's true or not in the beginning, I don't know. I think it probably is. But especially once you get sober and all the feelings come that you haven't been dealing with for so long, you're like, I can't handle this.
Absolutely.
And that's why, relapse is like.
I mean, that's why I used anyways, because I didn't want to feel those feelings.
Yeah.
So you are a veteran.
yes.
And now you had said you were in Desert Storm,
Yes.
so you didn't get sober till after you went over there and came back.
Well, when I was there, the culture was drug infested with alcohol and many different types of drugs.
Yeah. And this is while you're deployed in the military.
While I was deployed, yeah. And so, I mean, historically it was solutional to grab something and reach up and, try to numb your feelings or, so that, you didn't have to live in your own miserable existence. But,
Right.
Returning and coming back to a society where my occupation wouldn't translate into the civilian work career, that became more of depressive. It aggravated my PTSD because I would ask myself, who am I when no one's looking?
Mm.
And I kind of adopted that sense of low self-esteem, and I couldn't facilitate my own recovery process.
So you answered. So you would ask yourself that, and then you answered in a negative way. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I did, yeah.
Because it is good to ask yourself that.
Mhm.
Right.
Right? That's one of the things I learned when I was in Turnabout. The treatment center that me and him went to together. It was like what somebody said, I think it was Bob Fagan. He said, character is who you are when nobody's looking.
Mm.
You know? And it's a big concept. It's
How
important.
old were you when you enlisted?
I was 17. My first branch of the service was the Army. And I got out after 3 years, and years later I went into the Marine Corps. Two different concepts, two different ideologies. The Marine Corps is definitely different from the Army.
Mm.
It's like apples and oranges.
Yeah.
Wow, really? See, as an outsider, I wouldn't really.
So now,
I mean, I know that Marines are.
were you active in the meantime, like when you? So you were 17.
active
you got
using? You mean?
yeah, actively using or drinking. So you were 17. You got back. You got out. You were 20.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what happened there, and then you ended up going into the Marines.
Well, I mean, my addiction started way before I went into the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
I came up in an impoverished neighborhood. I wouldn't call it a neighborhood. It was like a projects.
Yep.
We called it the projects.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody there was on welfare or some type of
Yep.
subsidized type of living. And we always didn't have, all of our needs met.
Right.
And
Right.
it always made me feel like if you had something that I didn't have, that I was going to be okay if I had it. Whether it was a pair of sneakers, whether it was the car you were driving.
So would you
whether
take
was
it?
the food. I internalized all my feelings, and I started living in an illegal economy. I started taking things.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to adopt the same ideas that I seen my other peers and other children and boys that I was growing up with.
Exactly. You were a product
Oh,
of
yeah,
your
man.
environment.
Yeah, I was a product of
Yeah.
my environment. I was shoplifting.
So are we all.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember the first time I got caught stealing. But I know I was stealing long before I got caught. My first addiction, and I say it all the time, was attention. Whether it was good or it was bad. Because there's some abandonment in my story. So like it was like, hey, look at me, and I didn't care whether I was going to get in trouble for it or I was going to get praised for it, as long as it was noticed. But I remember, and I come from similar background, single mom, worked many jobs. We were just right up the street from the projects. To be completely honest, we were like 3 streets up. We just weren't in there, but that's where I hung out. Those are the people that I went to school with. Those are the people that I gravitated towards, because we all lived similarly. We all were in the same situations. Like if I wanted something, if I wanted new school clothes at say 10 or 11 years old, I had to work, make money, and buy them, because mom had to pay for the bills. You know what I mean? So like I understand that. That's
So was there, but no jail?
There were times when I had like some juvenile, run-ins and things,
Yeah.
and it was a part of the environment,
Right.
that came with the territory.
Right. A lot of people, it's like you either join the military or you're going to jail. Was that what it was like for you? No.
I've had some of that happen on my first hitch in the Army.
Yeah.
But my environment really devastated and impacted me in such a way where I believe that a lot of my addiction is centered around the environment that I grew up in. And leaving that environment and going to the Army as a young boy, that was an opportunity.
Right.
It was an opportunistic thing to be able to go somewhere, like go to another country, leave that environment, but at the same time, there was a culture there of drugs. I mean, I was always looking at the soldier that stood tall and, they modeled and exemplified excellence when they came home. Everybody liked them. Everybody was proud of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody-
As a kid.
As a kid, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well,
I
then-
see where you're going with this now. Okay.
It's similar to someone being good at sports. And,
Yeah, similar to someone that had a lot of attention. And
Yeah.
I said,
Like,
wow.
look what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah, it's respect.
Yeah.
They're very honored in the community, but I didn't know that there was a drug culture. There was an alcohol culture, and then there was the acceptance. Like if you didn't do those things, your peers in there wouldn't accept you.
Right.
So we talk about acceptance a lot in this disease of addiction and people pleasing and wanting to be a part of.
Oh yeah.
And I found myself people pleasing, and I found myself doing what everyone else was doing just to be a part of.
Absolutely, I did it.
Right.
I did it
So,
myself.
Yeah. That's
e-
what everybody does.
Even if you're scared to death,
well, you find a group that you want to be a part of, and then you act
as
like
if
them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
do
I
what
mean,
they do. Like
do
I
what they do.
I would do what you liked so that you would like me.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
Right.
like even if I knew what I was doing was wrong,
Mhm.
it didn't matter. Like I was told what was right and what was wrong when I was younger, but when it came to wanting that acceptance and to be a part of, it didn't matter. Like the morals went out the window.
Dude, I remember being real young, training wheels young, and
Yeah.
and coming across this lady who had a half barrel mailbox, right? And she was planting these flowers in there. This little old lady, and I was talking to her, and I was, and she said, "Make sure you don't let her tell your friends not to pull these flowers up." And I swear,
right.
I swear this is true. I come along another day or however long after that, and I'm riding along, and my friend Kurt, who's a year older than me, is standing there next to those flowers, and I come up, and he says, "Pull that flower out." So I said, so I pulled it out, and so the people come running out of the house. You can't, I felt so bad and so embarrassed, but it's just like peer pressure, even so young. You know what I mean? You just do that because you want to be accepted.
Right. Exactly.
I
It
knew
doesn't
it
matter.
was wrong. It was a bad thing to do. I didn't intend on being a bad guy.
Right.
It just happened. I think I was, I must have been 4. You know what I mean?
So now you end up, seeing how people are respected in the military, and people are, they get attention. So that was like a driving force towards you going into the Army.
Yeah, in the beginning, yeah. When I joined the Army, I went in as a 95 Bravo. I was a military policeman. This is way before I went to the Marine Corps. And, I was seeing a different side of it. I was seeing more of the criminal element of it, and I was seeing the social disease of it. And I was seeing things like anything that you would see, like a regular patrolman would see, like domestic disturbances that you would go to, or fights at a high school football game where they would have high school there. People would rob banks on the post. We had murders. We had rapes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
kidding.
it's like everything that the regular world
Everything
has.
the real world has.
I just never would have guessed that.
Yeah, we had a Victor 5, which is a military police investigator. We had CID agents for severe crimes like robbery or murder. So we were very active. We were engaged, with public, outside public safety officials and various different courtrooms. A lot of the soldiers would even have warrants, and we would have to transfer them off base, or sometimes even pick them up after they finished with whatever happened in the civilian sector. So I seen it in a different way as a young man. I remember responding to a call where there was a suicide, and it was the first time that I had seen a dead body. Even though I came from a violent community and there was a lot of shooting and poverty, but I didn't realize, how those things would affect me later on, and how they would attribute to my addiction, and how they would attribute to heavy drinking when I would want to take the edge off to make the thoughts go away.
That site of the suicide was a reoccurring thought later on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as a 17-year-old kid, I was still like being natured and nurtured, as you would want to say. I was still learning about woman and, the finer things in life. I saw life in a different way. I saw a lot of beauty in life. When I seen that,
Innocence,
my whole perspective, the way that I view and the way that I see the world was shaped differently after that. And I don't really know how I internalized it, but I know it came out in another way.
Yeah.
Many different ways.
Yeah.
So.
And that would, probably contributed to some of your alcoholism and drug use.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Just to kind of quiet that, and because that's like we always say, that's trauma.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This disease and addiction in general, I believe, starts from traumas.
Or stems
from traumas that we don't process, that we don't, and they don't have to be major. They don't have to be like super impactive, but they are there. And if they're not treated, with outside help or whatever, and I know today that there's a lot of different treatments for trauma, EMDR, tapping, there's like so many different ways to process trauma. And I didn't learn that until I got with a counselor who had not worked with alcoholics, because it was suggested by my counselor at my treatment center that I see outside counseling, because the recovery isn't going to treat everything in my life, and I know that to be very true today. I showed him the big book. He read through it. He's like, this whole 4th step thing is like very interesting. And like you sharing that with someone else. He goes, but like if you think about something that's on there, is there a feeling attached to it? Yeah, there is. He goes, well, then you haven't really processed it. So my first one that I did, we took a few of those things off of there and we did some EMDR on it. And he goes, when you think of things, you should have a memory, but it shouldn't really make you sad or cause anxiety. Or he's like, because if so,
intense feelings.
It hasn't processed. So,
dude, I remember
it was awesome.
When I first saw a dead body, it was my great-grandfather, and I think I was 16, and I involuntarily just took a step back. My mother's walking next to me. She's like, you all right? And I don't even know why I took a step back. I was like, yeah, I'm all right. But it's a big deal. Now, at 17, people say that you're supposed to be like almost an adult or something. You're not, though. You're not. You're still developing. You're still just guessing at the world, right?
Right.
It's a tough thing. Especially, I could imagine in the military, you have to, try to act as if you got it together all the time.
Yeah. So now you've this thing has happened, and you're trying to move on with everything.
Well, what happened was I got out of the Army, and I stayed out, I believe, for a year and a half. And there were no jobs, and I couldn't really find my footing. And so I joined the Marine Corps.
Was that early 90s?
That was in the later 80s. And it was a whole different culture, the Marines. They were definitely different.
More intense.
It was very intense. I didn't think I was going to make it at some times. But I knew, and I went in as an Anglo person. and
As a what now?
An Anglo person, a person that directs naval gunfire, fire from fighter
aircraft,
jets.
yeah.
There's
So
more to it than that.
Basically,
Anglo
you
shooting
Ghost.
a
told
laser
people where
at
the
things?
targets were.
Yeah, there's more. There's a whole lot more to it.
Mhm.
It's very lengthy school. It's very physical.
Wow.
It entails a lot. But when I was in Okinawa, Japan, I became my alcoholism it progressed so bad that I even found an AA meeting in Japan. The first time I ever seen one. At that time,
Wow.
I didn't know what AA was.
Mm.
Even when I was in the Army, I didn't know what it was. I was never introduced to it.
So let me get this straight. This is your first AA meeting, and you went in Japan?
I didn't want to go on the base because I didn't want anyone to know that I had a problem, and I wanted to keep it a secret.
That's pretty wild, though. I mean, that's
And,
probably pretty unique.
Yeah.
Somebody told me about it, and I actually had an interpreter there
Wow.
that was interpreting the meeting for me. And
That's cool.
So that was
The hand
where I
of
first
AA,
had-
right?
They're
Wow.
there.
That's
It's a
very
worldwide
cool.
organization.
Yep.
Very cool.
And
I
you
love
know, later on, I came. You know, I decided to come out with it. You know, I found a way to surrender to it, and you know, I started going to some of the meetings on the base. But you know, that also goes in you know, your 401 file. You know, that you have problems with substances, and you know, it kind of
This is
it
going into
damages
your
your
permanent record.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it damaged some security clearances. You know,
Oh,
I had
yeah.
high level security clearances, so I think I got bumped down one. But it wasn't something you know, that was optimistic. It was something that you know, hampered your career a little bit.
Now, had you gotten in trouble for your drinking while in the military at all?
I got in trouble because I wanted to, you know, be accepted. I ran with crowds that would tear up bars and, you know, that would have these gang fights against other companies. And the
Wow.
military was very harsh on it. They wouldn't allow, you know, that type of behavior, you know. So, you know, they would actually discharge people. They would punish people. They would put people in the brig. You know, you paid a heavy price. There were consequences for your actions. So I started getting some consequences, you know, like they say, the thought, the process, the outcome, the consequences. And so that's the way it went. And you know, I had to straighten up. But, you know, when I left there, I landed, you know, back into the States where the crack era came out. There was a new crack age, and it was something that I was totally unfamiliar with, and I started on that during a sexual encounter, and I really thought I found a friend with it, but it was so destructive.
Oh, man.
It was
God,
so
that's
progressive. I couldn't begin to tell you the things that I've done. I mean, just to get one more, or
The psychological
just to get
addiction.
one.
Oh, yeah.
The psychological addiction of that stuff is so powerful. I
Yeah.
remember trying to get sober. I tried to get sober a bunch of times, a lot of detoxes in and out, you know. And I remember just imagining that crack rock disappearing, and it just trigger you in my mind, and it would just like it would start that process. Like, all right, you know, I'd be sitting in there, and you'd be waffling back and forth, and then that thought of that it would just tip you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you'd realize, all right, I'm using again. Like, this sounded good for a day and a half, but now, as soon as I get out of here,
Right. Because it is.
It's
It's a
such an addiction.
mental addiction.
Yeah,
You know,
psychological,
there's
mental
the
addiction.
physical.
Whew. Heroin's
Like,
the physical.
it. Trust and believe it fucks you up. Like,
Oh, it fucks your body up big time.
and your mind. Like, some of the stuff that I did on that stuff, like, you know, hearing people peeking out the windows. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Carpet
yeah.
farming.
Well, I mean, my addiction had become so bad that I was living in an abandoned car, and I put signs on it, and it said "private property, keep out."
Right.
And the Labor Ready was like 20 yards away. I mean, a perfect place designed for an addict in mind,
Oh, the Labor Ready.
where
yeah.
I could work for $20
Yep.
for a little bit of crack or whiskey, what have you not. And then when they say how, you know, addiction is a progressive disease, you know, how it progresses, then it went to the heroin. You know, when I had a street sponsor that was, you know, hey, you need to try some of this.
Oh, yeah.
And at the time, I became a diabetic. And I remember loading
Really?
one syringe with insulin and one with heroin. And I had diabetics have an A1C level where it could tell you, you know, where your levels are at. When I came to the VA as a patient, mine's was an A12. That means that I was getting ready to die,
Yeah.
even as a VA patient. And when I went into the West Haven VA, I was real cocky, belligerent, and I stood by the door and I said, when this thing's open, I'm leaving. And this bell started ringing and everybody started going to their rooms on the ward. And, you know, I was surrounded by 10 people.
And now,
And,
is this before you went into the Marines, or is this after you came
Just
home?
after I got out. Yeah. And I saw my recovery started. And, you know, they had to force me down on a bed and tie me down. They put me in restraints. And,
Oh, so I was going to ask, was this 10 people who were just talking, and there's 10 people who were grabbing?
Oh, yeah. I never been picked up so easy in my life.
Wow.
And what happened was it took my power away.
What state was this in?
West Haven, Connecticut.
Connecticut, okay. Wow.
Yeah. It made me, it showed me how powerless I was. And I wanted some of that power back.
Oh, yeah.
When someone can pick me up
Absolutely.
and throw me down and medicate me, there was an urgency. The gift of desperation had to come
Right.
from somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, man.
I hear
Because
that.
I mean, that was the change when the pain became greater than the addiction.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
That's
like I shared with you the other day when I met you, I worked at the VA when I was young, 16 years old, and I had seen them do that to people. You know, I had a key. I had to open the door, get the food in there, make sure that door is locked quick. You know, because if someone gets out, now it's on me. You
That's
know?
like being told when you're in the dock and or you're out in the court and the judge says take him into custody.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that the first time, and it was just like, what?
Yeah.
And like I had a whole plan for my day.
Yep.
Take him into custody and off you go. It's like you don't have control over your own life because you're not responsible enough. You're not adult enough to be out on the streets.
Yep.
Well, then there were more stages of recovery that I went through, because you know how they say how the disease becomes progressive and fatal.
Yes.
And when they were talking about fatal, I didn't understand what they were saying. That means that there's something out there that can kill me without the drugs. But one of the other problems that I experienced was pornography. See, because the pleasure principle, I was always trying to feel good, and what I found out is something that tricks us. It fools us. It appears to be something passive when it's really something aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it affects all the same centers in the brain.
Sure, it does.
You know, drugs, porn, all that stuff. Like
Yeah.
people end up getting sober and like all they want to do is have sex. You know? And
Right.
they can do just as much damage.
Absolutely.
Just as much damage. It's like you're using these people as your drug.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't care, selfish and self-centered to the extreme. You don't give a shit about the other person. I say, like, when I sponsor people, I say this all the time. You can do whatever you want. You want to get in a relationship, get in a relationship. But remember, anytime two people lay down, someone's getting up with feelings. It could be you, it could be them. They could be bad and they could be good. But there's
Yeah.
always feelings attached. I don't care. You can throw that no strings attached bullshit on it.
Mm.
It don't have. That's just how we are as
Right.
a species. You
Yeah.
know,
My father
don't realize the damage we can do.
My father had a good analogy. It's like taking two pieces of duct tape and put the sticky sides together, and then you got to rip that apart. You know, those things aren't the same after you're done.
Absolutely.
You know.
So what did you? Were you treating this the same way, or?
Well, what I learned about it is that, like I said, it appeared to be something passive, but it was really aggressive because what was happening was domination, control, and submission in the movies, and even the women that were in there were subjected to and used with drugs
Yeah.
or what have you not. And what else was happening was when my fantasy couldn't match my reality, I would get in my car and I would go out and turn corners and pick people up. And I talked about the part where, when I was talking about fatalism, you know, how we talk about how the disease is fatal.
Yep.
And, you know, there are other things out there that can kill you. And the reason why I say that is because I was picking up some of these people and I was saying, wow, she looks good. I don't have to use a rubber.
Yeah.
You know? And
Yeah.
see, my disease, the way that I thought, you know, my disease was picking these people that I wanted to pick up, that I thought that, you know, they were regular people, that I can have one of these encounters like that, and that
Right,
it's okay. But what I was doing is, you know, the obsession, the impulsion, you know, the cycle of addiction. Something happens way before you even pick up a drug or a drink of alcohol, and the thing is,
sure.
it's risk taking. Once you take one risk, you're going to take more and more risk,
Right.
and it's not a healthy recovery. It's not a healthy recovery process, because you know, more often there were times where, you know, I picked up a woman and it wound up where we were in the Super 8 motel because she wanted that drugs and I wanted the sex. And I have to talk about these things because
Absolutely.
my sharing, my ability to share depends on freeing someone today from their own addiction. The way that I share, I have to keep it real because there's someone else out there that's in recovery that's thinking like this
Absolutely.
or exhibiting this type of behavior. They're running around with it. And I was that guy that I was in the meeting sharing like Shakespeare and living like Genghis Khan. You know, I didn't tell you
Right.
that these things were happening because, you know, there's a difference between telling the truth and being honest. A person can tell the truth in the wrong way and can manipulate the truth. Being honest, the honesty won't allow me to live in deception or to allow me to live in a lie.
That's right. Because
See,
you know your truth.
I know that there's an activator, you know, because we talk about the allergy. You know, something has to open up this disease. Something has to trigger this disease. And it
Right.
begins with the pleasure principle.
Right. You need you need a catalyst. You get that dopamine dump. You know, whether it's, you know, from driving around looking, or you know, you have the you get the woman's attention or the man's attention, and you know what I mean. It just that's like the chase, like trying to hunt down the drugs and find the drugs.
Sure.
You know, it can be equally as damaging
Sure.
to it can cause a relapse.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Don't even have to have any drugs involved, but it's the feelings.
Right.
You know, the way you feel after, or you know, or you find out how the other person feels.
It sets you a little bit out of control.
Yeah.
You're chasing something and you're willing to compromise your safety
Yeah.
or and it's not something you can share with everybody in your
Right.
life.
Right.
Like
Well,
even if you're just watching porn, like I had a little period of that, and it's like it becomes an obsession. There's too much dopamine that comes from it.
Yeah.
It's too
Absolutely.
much easy to quick hit, and
You're trying to fulfill this script that you're watching
Mm-hmm.
with a normal person.
yes.
You know, that
Yep.
has no idea of the script that you're trying to
Yeah.
play out. You're the actor trying. If everything goes off the way I want it to, I'm gonna be all right.
But even if you're just by yourself watching pornography,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a quick fix, something that's dumping a ton of dopamine into your life. And as addicts, it's just you get addicted to doing that.
Yeah.
You're looking forward to it. You're
Yep.
like, all right, can I get alone for a minute? You know what I mean? It's not. It's not.
Yeah. Russell Brand addresses it a bunch
It's not.
because he had an issue with it as well.
It's not truly fulfilling.
No.
You
It,
know?
it became so bad that when I was turning corners at night one time, and I was driving around, I says, "Where are they? They're nowhere." Then I started getting closer. I says, "Oh, there goes one right there." And as I got closer and closer, it was a fire hydrant. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
bad my mind was playing tricks on me.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
wow.
it's damaging because you're up all night. You have to be in work at 5 o'clock in the morning. Now you're late, and you got to come up with an excuse. So it has repercussions in ways that it can affect many areas of your life. But what it is accepting the unacceptable, because it's not acceptable for an addict like me to do that. Spiritual principles are never in conflict with solutions, and that's what we're taught.
Right.
We're
I
not.
was
We're,
just going to bring that up.
we're taught a 12-step program, but everybody keeps forgetting about the principles, the spirituality.
Each step has a
Um,
principle.
That's right. You're not-
Everybody's forgetting about our character that needs to be addressed.
You-
I mean,
Yeah, you gotta walk your talk.
We're
You know,
granted a
it's-
daily reprieve contingent on our spiritual condition.
Right.
And our spiritual condition isn't right if we're watching porn all the time, or if we're, like you say, chasing
Absolutely.
this and that.
and when it wasn't that, in my 5th year of recovery, I have 14 years this coming May. In my 5th year of recovery, I was shoplifting,
Oh wow,
and
that's a behavior that from
Yeah.
your youth, right? I mean, that's something you used to do long ago.
well, not only did it come from a youthful experience, it came from like when I was talking about before that if I seen that you had something that I didn't have,
Oh, okay.
I felt that I was going to be okay. My whole life would be all right if I can have that watch you're wearing.
So it was situational happiness.
Well,
Or circumstantial happiness.
Quick fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I got that, I'm gonna feel okay.
well, it was adrenaline because it was
Oh, okay.
it was no matter where it was, Walmart, Target, Sears. It was a matter of who was going to make it to that front door first.
Mm.
And if I got past that, I mean, I felt a rush, and I felt so good
Yeah.
that I got these items, and I got away with this.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But the thing of it is that my recovery and my life was in jeopardy because there's consequences for my actions.
They get jail
Yeah.
for sober people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have clean sales for dirty addicts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that after a while of watching the behaviors manifest themselves, I finally began to see the process for what it was. And when they were talking about spirituality, I couldn't get it. And the thing is that if I'm a spiritual person and I got to throw bodies in the river at night, something is not going to line up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me
right.
saying that I got to get to a meeting at 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get rid of this body real quick.
It
Yeah.
So
it just
when you
doesn't
say
have
the
there's gonna be
process,
conflict.
Which process do you mean? You mean the recovery process or the process of going into this substitution addiction type thing?
Well, a part of being in the process is I have to approach it by means of spiritually in nature. Like if you dropped a dollar bill in here today, there was in the past I would put my foot on it, and you would ask me, "Hey, did you see that?" I said, "Oh no, I didn't see it, but I can help you find it." But I'm standing on it.
Yeah.
The thing is that recovery is also attributed to a spiritual disease. I mean, I have to become a spiritual person in order to live in recovery with boundaries, ethics, morals, values, goals, and conviction. I can't pull the door when somebody's trying to come in behind me. I'll hold it today because if I'm practicing this type of behavior, of good conduct, being a good person in my community, I'm carrying the standards, but also I'm becoming a part of my own wellness and my own goodness.
I believe there's a piece there too that we can identify ourselves as someone who does these good things, and we respect that. Anyone respects someone who does good things, right? And you're going to disrespect someone who does bad things, and so you don't want to disrespect yourself in your heart. You know what I mean? So that's the thing, and that's where it's like, characters where who you are when no one's looking, but you're looking, even when no one else is.
Yeah.
And you see it, you're like, and you think in the back of your mind subconsciously, this is who I am. But if you continue, that's why you act yourself into right thinking, continue to do the right thing, and then you think in the back of your head subconsciously, oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
And it gives you a smile, right?
Yeah.
Well, in our big book, it says God, I believe it's 121 times.
Is that all?
I would've thought it would be more. It says it a lot of times. But people try to remove the equation, but I know that God, for me, like if you have a slick mouth, He's gonna keep sending you back to the unemployment line. If you don't like people bothering you, He's gonna send you more and more people to bother you.
You will. The universe will provide the lesson until you learn it. I had a friend that was in my group, and like this guy did not want to pay for razors, sober. He said, "Fuck that, they're too expensive." I'm not. And for years and years and years, he stole razors, and then, one time he goes to steal, and he just didn't feel right. Starts sweating, getting nervous. He basically it was a spiritual awakening. Like, I'm not supposed to do this, and there was a couple other things that he didn't like to pay
sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, right?
But removed from the drink for a long time, but still practicing. And a friend of mine says it's not an old behavior if you're still doing it. It's a behavior. Like we have to change everything, and like you said, living practicing these principles in all our affairs, not just in a meeting. Like when you leave that meeting, you need to do the things that you're talking about doing in that meeting. I have to walk around as if someone is watching at all times, because my higher power is. I ain't getting one over on him no matter what,
But also, God's watching, but also, you're watching.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't like that feeling no more.
That's right. That can't be understated, because we think that we can be happy getting away with and getting over.
Yeah.
But there's another level of happiness that's called being a man or a woman of honor and dignity.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that's a level of self-respect that I think that it's vital to me in my recovery. I can't try to get over, because I don't like when people get over on me, and I don't like that behavior. I don't agree with it. I know it's in my faith, it's thou shalt not steal, and that's murder. That's the laws. That's the law.
Yeah. See, when we go back to the step working process, which was a big process for me. When I got to step 1 and I finished step 1, I mean, now that I finished that, I'm about as clean as I'm going to get. I mean, now everything is predicated on my choices. But the surrender that it talked about in 1 was different than the surrender that it talked about in 6. But as I got to step 10 down the road, things started to change, because Step 10 was talking about how not to bring your present life situations into your past life circumstances. And what it was teaching me is that why was I choosing things and selecting things that are drawing me into my own sickness? And why was I finding myself in the condition constantly that I find myself in? It also taught me in step 10, what happens if you fall off the bus? It shows you how to get back on. So after I started working these steps, things began to change. I began to develop more growth. My recovery, my addiction wasn't associated with losses. I mean, I wouldn't tell you, oh, my lights are turned on, I can't afford gas, I don't have enough money for shoes. Things started to change. I became a homeowner, never been late on a mortgage.
So your perspective changed, basically.
My perspective changed and my behaviors changed. And I developed morals, values, goals, and convictions that were contingent upon my step working process.
Now, so you went to the VA and you got sober. Now, did you go to any type of drug program while you were there, or a halfway house after, or?
Well, that's a good question.
How did you get into the step work and
Well, in all VA facilities, they have H&I commitments. They have commitments coming in from AA, from NA, from various different recovery groups, and I was able to meet some of those people. And they would pick me up and take me to meetings off the base when I didn't have a car. So my recovery process started there, and in the process of meeting some of those people, they were successful people. A lot of them had gone to college and got their degrees. A lot of them owned their own businesses. Some of them were policemen and firemen. One of them was a lawyer. One of them was my doctor at the hospital.
Wow, that's cool.
And so it was so empowering that I saw fit that I wanted to take part and be a part not only of my recovery, but with someone else's recovery. So I went to school for it, and I obtained a job at the VA hospital as a certified peer specialist, working with treatment teams.
And now, how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that for 8 years. In 2016, Nikki DeSongas invited me to the White House, and I spoke a little bit on Veterans Initiative in the Cannon Caucus building. It was on C-SPAN.
Nice. Wow, big stuff.
And so I was able to meet with the governor. I was able to rub elbows with political people.
Not bad for a crackhead, huh?
It's not bad. I mean, it just shows you what happened, what can happen.
Right?
I had a similar experience. Like, I was a straight up homeless junk bomb. Like, running around, stealing, robbing, cheating, homeless, stolen cars. That's what I'd do. I'd steal a car to have a place to stay. You know what I mean? When it ran out of gas, I'd go and get another one. And
you're talking my language.
I got finally, God removed me from that situation, and I got arrested. You know, and I proved to myself that if I got out, I was going to get high again. Like 2 months before that, because I went to 30 days of Bridgewater, and I got out, got high. Had no solution. I didn't know anything about AA, 12 steps, nothing. So pled guilty, got my time, did it. Then a month and a half ago, I got to sit down with Sheriff Joe McDonald, who was the sheriff at the time, and District Attorney Timothy Cruz, who was the district attorney of Plymouth County at the time.
And we sat down on the podcast.
Yeah, sat down with them on the podcast. And
pretty cool.
They were like, see, this is what these guys in jail need. They need to see people like you to know that they can change. Because, luckily, I've been sober since I got here. I haven't had relapses since I went to jail, treatment, and here I am. You know,
I mean, another thing I want to say is that one of the things that bring me out here today is the empathy, because self-centeredness is the core of my disease.
Yeah, man.
It tells me that it's okay to watch 13 hours of TV all day.
Yeah.
It tells me I don't have time for anybody else to listen to their problems.
Right.
Or to help them negotiate or navigate this tough terrain in recovery when they're just coming in as a newcomer. But in order to convey this message and get this message across and put this message out there, I mean, the empathy, I mean, it's a big piece,
Yeah.
a big
Yep.
part of this program. A lot of sympathy goes around, but sometimes not enough empathy. I
Right.
mean, and then the other
See what
thing,
you're saying, yeah.
as an addict, if someone asks me to do a commitment or be somewhere, I'm very prompt. I'm always on time, and that's accountability.
Right.
Because in the past, when could we ever show up somewhere on time?
Oh man,
No.
I mean,
I couldn't even show up to my mother's funeral on time. You know, like that's it's crazy. Like I couldn't. How important is your mother's funeral? You know what I mean? Like couldn't get there on time because I was in active addiction. It's
Yeah.
crazy the sacrifices and like how much I put myself before anything else and how I felt and the drugs that I needed. Fucking crazy. Like you want to talk about powerful. Addiction is powerful, and I don't care what you're addicted to. You know, it's people think, oh, it's just a choice. Yeah, it was a fucking choice once, but then that's
way
you know,
back.
it's like having sex with a gorilla. It ain't over till the fucking gorilla says it's over.
that's right.
You know,
That's
like
right.
that's it. Like, until you surrender to this and like you said, trust this process. I've watched people. I've watched people have time and do this stuff and stop doing what they're doing, stop working their steps, and gone to their wakes.
Yeah.
Just watch their families cry when they had this solution. They had it. It sucks. That's constant vigilance. Like that's why we do this. That's why I tried never to say no. Unless time doesn't allow it or a previous engagement doesn't allow it. I try not to say no.
Yeah, I think it's very vital that we stay connected and networked, because what happens is when we don't, once you stop hearing the solution, here comes the problem.
Yep.
And it's something that we have to hear. It's like a diabetic that has to take medication every day. This is a disease that will never go away.
Right.
It's for the rest of my life.
It's terminal and fatal.
I mean,
That's
it
right.
manifests
Progressive,
itself in
terminal,
every single way.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me think that I need a 25-year-old or 20-year-old woman to make me satisfied. I mean, what am I going to do with that? Buy her a skateboard? When it's time to go to dinner, Chuck E. Cheese?
Yeah.
At 58 years old, I got to think rationally and without my feelings, because my flavor comes up in so many different ways. And it's not just in food.
Oh no.
I mean, a Nike hat is not going to make me happy.
Right.
I mean, that shirt that I really want and I'm craving it so desperate for. I mean, that's taking an inside problem and trying to fix it with an outside solution.
Yep.
And after I wear it for a few days, I mean, even the fact that I have 25 hats, but I have one head. I mean, it just shows you the insanity of the disease and how it makes sense out of nonsense. I mean, for us, it's not just in the way we use.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's the way we can lie, the way we can manipulate. It's the way that we treat people.
Yeah.
The way that we talk to people. It's everything from the way that how we take care of ourselves and our health and our hygiene. I mean, the circumference of recovery is so holistic that it goes beyond our literature.
Absolutely.
I mean, to live spiritual in nature.
Yeah, I have to constantly feed my spirituality with, different things. And it took me a long time to realize that, and today, like I've said it before, my diet is much more than the stuff that I eat. It's what I watch, it's what I read, it's what I associate myself with. It's where I go. I have to think of all of that stuff to keep myself,
spiritually fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, I mean, when it comes to people, I mean, sometimes I may separate myself, and it doesn't mean that I'm better than. It just means that I might be better off.
Absolutely, man.
And because the thing is, it's like I used to, accompany these people. They had all these words and the way that they said everything. But what happens is, I start taking on their characteristics and their attributes real quick. Just the same way that I done in the service, the same way that I did in my youth, in the community. So recovery can be lonely sometimes because, we have to carry the standards differently. We have to associate ourselves with people that are in a working process.
Yes.
Of becoming in the transformation of recovery.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think that we're all on this spiritual growth journey. Yeah, those of us who are in recovery, and you can choose to stop and go in the other direction. Because you could say this about everybody, even people who aren't in recovery, that we're all here to learn to grow spiritually. But then there's the example of like, well, what was Hitler doing? You know what I mean? He wasn't growing too much.
Yeah.
You can go in the other direction.
Yeah.
Right. And it usually doesn't turn out well for people who do.
Yeah, but like when you're doing your best to practice these principles in all your affairs and hanging out with somebody who, yes, they may be charismatic, they may be liked, but you start to change. I keep my circle small. I remember when I wanted the biggest circle around, and now I realize it's the quality of the people that I hang out with, and that's not the quantity of people. Water seeks its own level. I gotta stay with like-minded individuals, people that are trying to grow themselves. You know what I mean, and just be better people, and that's.
Dude, I have a tendency to hermit up. I mean, I get so involved with myself and my own things that.
It happens.
I go to too many meetings. I'm so glad we do this, because it's getting me out. It's good. I just get all involved in my head. It's usually pretty good stuff. I think a lot about spirituality. I think a lot about self-improvement, conscious contact with God and praying all the time and all this stuff. And it's all well and good, but I think that we need other people, and we need to help people.
Yeah, like you said, it can get lonely at times.
And it's so easy to just slip into that loner mode for me.
Yeah.
Just deal with me and my, close fam. But it's good that we have this podcast.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to get out after working all day. I come home.
Don't want to do nothing. Yeah.
There's a couch.
Yeah.
Boom.
I hear you. I was freezing outside all day filling potholes. You know what I mean? I wanted to just go home and chill.
Yeah.
But I look forward to coming here and doing this, and we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience with us.
It was good.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It's empowering when you're around other addicts. Being around other addicts, they say in our literature, it says that we know each other like survivors of a fatal catastrophe.
Yeah.
It's shipwreck. Yeah.
It's like I can be around an addict, and I feel like I know him or her like all my life.
Right. Because you've struggled and been through the same things, But like it also says that feeling can fade in literature. I don't want that feeling to fade. You know what I mean?
But we can be the same.
Because we have this common bond.
We can be the same as like, a housewife who only drank wine. You know what I mean? We all slip into that restless, irritable, and discontent. And that's what binds us. We always were looking for that outside solution to fix
Yeah.
that inside.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you're.
that we don't belong, and I mean it's such a powerful thing too. It really is.
Absolutely.
But
So we
we've done
appreciate
it.
you coming on, and
Well, thank you guys for having me.
you know,
thanks, man.
you've touched on a few things that not any of our other guests have touched on, and I'm
Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah.
a lot of recovery talk.
Yeah,
as opposed
exactly.
to a lot of drunk
Exactly.
love, and that's
Thank you.
always
appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
LOLterms.com.
Please subscribe.
Subscribe, and share.
Thank you.
And once
everybody.
again, if you'd like to share your experience, strength, and hope with us, please reach out. Message me, Tom. Message the page, the group.
Yeah.
And that's it. All right. Thanks again, Reggie.
Thanks again.
All right, thanks,
Peace.
Chris and Tom.
Peace.
Peace. We approve this message.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.